They look pretty friendly, don't they?
Yeah, they do. Good morning, everybody.
He's not friendly. That guy right there, he's got tomatoes. I saw him bag of tomatoes. And this guy, I'd be suspicious of too in the red shirt.
Okay.
Just watch him. He looks harmless. He looks it, but kind of curious.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Scotty. I've been skip tracing for about 8 years. I'm very happy to be here with Bob. I'm kind of curious, as far as all of you out there, anybody had experience with skip tracing before? No?
So you got a handful.
Okay.
20%. Why don't you tell them what skip tracing is? Because I had a discussion, because I think we were talking the other day, I said skip tracing to some degree is like when you try to find that old high school buddy that you lost touch with, or your high school sweetheart that you lost touch with. I did that. As a matter of fact, we married my old high school sweetheart, but I found through Facebook. Skip tracing.
So skip tracing is just basically finding people, gathering information, and once you do find somebody, the information grows. It just continues to grow once you do find somebody. You have to know when to stop, because you can go on and on and on and on. So when I'm skip tracing and I feel that I have the information that I need, I stop. I use that information. I try the phone numbers, addresses, businesses, whatever it is. If I don't have a good contact, then I continue on. But when I feel comfortable that I have what I need, again, I just stop, because it's a waste of time. You can continue on and it just never ends, never ends. And honestly, like Bob had said, I honestly, in the last 5 months, there's one person that I cannot find, and it is driving me crazy. When I have free time, I jump on the computer and I go back to it because it's driving me crazy. This is a 37-year-old person that has no relatives, just passed away. Even on the death certificate, whoever that applied for the death certificate, it just says, unknown member, family, or associate. That doesn't tell you anything. Everybody has a relative, whether it be brother, sister, mother, cousin, somewhere. So this one's really driving me crazy. So, but most of the time you're going to find who you're looking for. As far as corporations, LLCs, I actually find that those are easier because they're more exposed as opposed to the individual. So when you are trying to find an LLC, there's so many places that you can look. So other than finding a John Jones or somebody like that, I would rather look for a corporation that's a DBA and then looking for a member than to look for somebody with a common name. Okay, so that's just my opinion. I'd rather check those.
So you're going to show some demonstrations of skip tracing, describe as you go along?
Right.
Okay.
So
I'm just going to grab another chair.
the first one that I'm going to look for, it's called Equalt Fund 2 LLC. And all you really need to find who you're looking for, as long as you have an address and a name, that's really all the information that you need. You don't need anything else. Let me give you an example. So if I had an LLC that I was looking for in this case, the first thing I would do is I would go to the Secretary of State. This particular LLC is registered in Florida. Google is your friend. You will not be surprised. I mean, you'll be surprised what you will find on Google. I don't even know, have any of you ever Googled yourself to see? Were you surprised at the information that you found out there about yourself and thought, how did they know that? How is that on the internet? If you haven't, I think you should, because you'll be surprised. So, like I said, the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go into the Secretary of State. What's that?
If you Google, the internet will explode.
And it will, that's the thing. So.
Now, why were you going to Secretary of State again?
Because I'm looking for a LLC, and all LLCs, if you don't know anything about them, the state that they're operating in, they have to be registered with that state. Sometimes they're registered with multiple states.
So the question, in case anybody didn't hear, Dina's question was, why do you go to the Secretary of State? And within each state, that's where the entity gets registered. So the Florida Secretary of State registers Florida entities. And when you're looking at these things, always look for the actual Secretary of State website.
Right,
A lot
that's
of
what I'm
times,
looking for.
like the first 10 results are all advertisements for services that want to charge you for Secretary of State access.
That's what I'm looking for.
Bob, is it necessary for us to register with each state that we're working in?
So the question is it necessary to register with each state you're working in? When you're making claims, you should be registered in that state. So, but before that step, no. Your corporation registers with the state. If you're working with an LLC or a corporation, when you're working in a state actually making claims, you're supposed to register.
Actually, can't find what I'm looking for.
Finding what you need, or you?
No.
Are you automatically registered with your state when you go and file your business name, your tax number?
The state that you register in initially, that is the registration.
Okay.
So in other states, you'll fill in a one-page form to register a foreign entity. When you see foreign entity, it doesn't mean foreign like from Afghanistan or Israel or someplace. It means a different state. So when you see foreign state qualification, and it's just a simple one-page form, really just gives an address within that state where they can send you mail or sort of process. And no, those forms are specific to each state, so just go to the Secretary of State website and see them. So that's not in the book. Yes.
What is the nexus that, I mean, if my control is limited by California, and I happen to be working in another state to do a claim, what is their interest in having a bank account? I'm confused why I would need to register my own.
I think, it's just my opinion, and obviously you're an attorney too, so you may have different feelings, but my feelings, if you're going to be in a state making claims, hiring attorneys, getting money out of the state, working with people in that state, I think you should register. So that's my thought. I don't think just advertising and marketing in the state is enough.
When you say registered, you mean form an LLC or just do a DBA?
What I mean register, it's just, there's a paper called a foreign entity registration.
Yeah.
Where you're just letting that state know you're operating there. The downside of doing that is just then they expect to see a tax return from you. And so that's the downside. But also, again, I don't recommend working in 6 states. I think if you get lists from 2 or 3 counties, you have enough to make a whole business out of it. So why operate in 6 or 7 different states? It's just creating.
Doesn't it provide a form of legitimacy that someone should check? You know,
I think it does. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. So what's your first name?
Edward.
So Edward's point, I think it's a good one, is that it does provide legitimacy to you. If you're registered with the state, that is legitimacy. If someone checks, to verify whether you're actually registered with the state, you are. I do think it's registered. You good?
Yes. Okay, so I found the site for the Florida Secretary of State. It's very simple. All you have to do is put in the name.
And by the way, all the states have this business entity name search. They all have that. And sometimes it's for when you want to form a new entity, you need to see if the name is available. And other times it just links you to the document. If it's already there, it'll link you to the documents.
So the default, what you're Googling right now, that's the name of the business that's the claimant?
Correct.
Yeah. Yes, that's correct. So
An LLC.
Dina's question was, is this the name of the claimant that Patty's searching? Yes.
So basically, once we find the LLC, we have to find out who the principals are, who's the president, the CEO, is there an attorney or that's signing the documents are filed with the Secretary of State on their behalf. This is how you track down who your individual is. So what I'm finding here is Brian Davidson, who is the CEO. And it actually brings up his picture and
You have LinkedIn too, which means you have a direct way to contact him. You
Exactly.
can message him through LinkedIn.
so here,
What's the LLC name? I can't see it from there.
What was the name of the LLC?
it's Equalt, EQUILALT.
Like Alternative Investments?
Okay, so this tells you you go right
So he's
here.
in Las Vegas, then there's their website. You can link right up to the
And you
website.
can, and it actually has a link, you can click right on it.
But that looked more like a Google search result rather than an internal SOS agency result.
It's just what I clicked on, but if I, let me show you something.
If that wasn't a Google search, it was Secretary of State.
It just had a link,
Each state is different,
Yeah.
yes.
and each state will give you, some will actually let you view the documents, the filing documents. So if you go on Secretary of State and look at the Articles of Incorporation and click on that, it'll actually tell you who your president is, your vice president, your member, your appointed member. So you have your contacts in that way. I was having problems getting into that, so I'm actually gonna, and you can do this and see if you come up with a result instead of going to the Secretary of State. You can do this also.
You know, it's interesting, base names, Equal, Alternative Investments. I'll bet this is someone who either buys tax liens or deeds and ended up with, or tax liens ended up with a deed they didn't really want, didn't know how to handle, ended up losing in a tax sale.
So if you see here, just by Googling this, it gives you a lot of information. Again, it lists Brian Davidson, his LinkedIn account. You could click on that to get his contact information. There's also the same LLC. They're actually in Tampa, Florida, and in Las Vegas. I found that out when I was kind of playing with that last night.
Was this a Florida lead we gave you?
It is. And I was really surprised to find out that he's in Las Vegas also.
Yeah, it's odd.
So, another thing that you could do is you're provided with addresses. You could also reverse those addresses. Right here, just by Googling, it's giving you the company profile. And by just browsing through this, and every search is gonna be different, but just by browsing through it, it's gonna give you information.
So what did you do? You just put the address in the Google?
I just Googled the name, rather than going to the
Okay.
Secretary of State, I just Googled the name of the LLC. So now, you see that it's an active corporate or LLC, it gives you their ID, the date, the latest date of the filing, because I think they have to file every year documents.
Some states, yeah.
Okay,
Some states.
and it tells you here the registered agent is Richard Scrub. Scrub?
And registered agents, by the way, every corporation needs someone who could be served with process in the state where they're active. So registered agents, typically it's a service like $99 a year, and they're there to receive papers on behalf of the corporation. So if you sent them a letter to Equal, if you send it to the registered agent, they're gonna get it to Equal.
It's just another contact. That's the person that's appointed to file the documents on behalf.
And also receive process too. Like, I know as a lawyer, if I need to sue an entity, I'm gonna serve the papers on the registered agent.
Okay. I went into page 2 of my Google search, and I actually just found, and again, I haven't done anything but went on Google and Googled the LLC's name. Here's their Las Vegas contact. Right here, you've got a phone number and an address, and you already know the name, Brian. We found that earlier. So at this point, because if you were to Google him, meaning Brian, Mr. Williams, You're gonna find a lot of things that he's involved in. His main contact is the Park Run address in Las Vegas that we just saw.
One thing I would say is that at this point,